Good evening, I'm Harry Morrison, General Manager of the Carbon Trust Standard Company, and I've got the dubious pleasure of talking about regulation for 5 minutes without repetition or deviation. And I'd like to talk to you about the CRC, the Carbon Reduction Commitment, which is the new regulation coming out next year. And it is an important piece of regulation at the top of many businesses' minds right now. I'd like to give you some context. Why does it exist? Then move on to the state of the debate, and finally suggest that many organisations are missing the bigger picture by focusing on the minutiae right now. So, why is the CRC here? Well, half of UK emissions from business and public sector are already covered by the European Emissions Trading Scheme and climate change agreements. The CRC tries to bite off the next 25%. We're talking retail, we're talking public sector, we're talking professional services, those types of organisations. And to date, those organisations really don't face much of a cost of carbon. There's no incentive to reduce. The cost of carbon is lower than the price volatility in the energy that they're paying for. So the CRC is about biting off this next challenge and getting much more of the economy to go down that low carbon journey. CRC today, well, we're 2 months from kick-off. The CRC starts on the 1st of April, and the first year is really about reporting and registration. So businesses need to get geared up. There's going to be about 5,000 organisations covered, many big household names, particularly in the services sector of the economy and the public sector as well. And it's a carbon trading scheme. It's all about cutting emissions through cap and trade. The CRC aims to save a fair bit of carbon. In fact, it's about a 6% saving that's targeted between now and 2020. So quite important, but not actually the biggest policy out there. It's nevertheless generated a lot of headlines, many of them quite negative. Quite a lot of criticism of the CRC for complexity reasons, for cost reasons, and also some criticism that it doesn't help renewables sufficiently. And I would argue that those criticisms actually miss the key point. Firstly, the CRC isn't about renewables, it's about energy efficiency. And secondly, there isn't a choice between CRC and no regulation. It's about making sure we've got something in place to keep driving the business agenda forwards. Many companies right now are stuck on the basic questions of qualification, compliance, and how to calculate their carbon footprint. And really the best place to go for those is to the DEC user guide, so I'm not going to talk about those fairly simple issues. More sophisticated challenges are around the risks, the accounting implications of the CRC, and also how to profit through early action by installing smart meters and indeed achieving the Carbon Trust Standard, which is what I work on. And we covered much of that in our user guide earlier this year. But I actually want to look beyond where business is today and talk about the bigger picture, because if you focus on the minutiae of regulation in the next couple of years, you'll miss the really important trends that could affect your business for the future. And that important trend is going to be delivered by the carbon budgets that the UK government has committed us to. Those carbon budgets require a 1.7% reduction in carbon emissions across the entire economy every year between now and 2020. That's 3 times the rate of the CRC. And actually, if you look at the 2050 target of an 80% reduction, then we need to be decarbonising our entire economy at over 3% a year. That's an absolutely dramatic shift, and it will change the way all of us do business. And I think that if you look at that, and you realise that when you factor in growth, we're talking about a 60% change in carbon intensity in your business by 2020, and indeed a 9-fold, a 900% change in carbon efficiency by 2050, you realise that regulation and the details of the rules of the CRC right now isn't the big debate. What you've got to think about is how are you going to prepare for that long-term shift. The CRC is just the start of that journey, it's not the end game. So I would argue, if you're in the CRC, sure you need to ask about compliance next year, but start asking your carbon manager some more fundamental questions. What's your 2015 strategy? What's your 2020 strategy? Do you have a long-term investment plan? Are you measuring and monitoring your emissions? Those are the key issues. And actually beyond that, what's it going to do to your business model? That's the fundamental issue. Have you got the ability to decarbonise your business and still have a business? And I think that if you're thinking in that mindset, you realise that you need to start with your customers, you need to talk to them about the activity you're already taking. Here are 2 companies that are doing that, M&S and First Direct. They both work with the Carbon Trust Standard to measure, manage and reduce their emissions. And this is just an example of some of their advertising. They're starting that discussion with their customers.